say this over and over and over again, but rabies is one of my #1 fears. It is one of the only viruses with a 100% fatality rate. You heard that right. If you do not get the vaccine and the entire treatment within the first couple of hours, you will die. There is nothing they can do for you. And dying by rabies may be quick, but it is not a fun process. As your brain is slowly consumed by liquid virus, it starts to rip apart each individual part of your brain, causing terrifying symptoms, like being afraid of water to the point of extreme dehydration and vomiting and nausea, to making you extremely paranoid and aggressive as it destroys your amygdala. It's safe to say it is one of the worst ways to go and #1 on my list of irrational fears.
These are scary things hidden in your favorite Disney movies, part 4. First up, we have Tangled. In case you missed it, basically Pinocchio is found up in the rafters and it looks like he's not moving or nothing. Disney, please explain. Next up, we have the movie Moana. So if you look closely, you can see a carrot and a wooden hand. So does this mean that Olaf unfortunately melted?
Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty.
Rapunzel is Cinderella's stepmom theory. So we all know that Rapunzel had 2 kids. But when you look up her kids' names, they go by Anastasia and Drizella. Who are they, you may ask? Well, they are the evil stepsisters in Cinderella. And yes, this Cinderella's evil stepsisters are Anastasia and Drizella. So if these 2 are Cinderella's stepsisters and this is a stepmom, then that would make Rapunzel the evil stepmom. So that would mean Rapunzel learned her evil ways from her.
Say it's a dinosaur corpse that was found deep in the Himalayas near a remote ravine. Others say it's a dragon's body that was discovered on an island off the coast of Spain. When the footage first surfaced, it spearheaded a debate about whether dragons actually exist in remote areas of the world. True believers hailed the footage as groundbreaking evidence that would surely rewrite the history books.
This is why you never want to get lost in the woods. This story starts off with a birdwatcher named Kumi stumbling upon an injured hiker named Moriguchi. After getting taken to the hospital staff is shocked to learn that Moriguchi survived on the forest floor for a month straight with only the snacks in his backpack. It seems like a miracle, but this is just a facade to hide the actual truth. Kumi decides to stay in the hospital with Moriguchi for his first night until he's woken up in the middle of the night by a gulping sound. On top of Moriguchi is a woman spitting something into his mouth. The woman gives Kumi a smile and walks out of the room like nothing happened. Moriguchi is forced to tell Kumi the truth, and that's the fact that after being injured for a couple days, suddenly a woman appeared before him. This woman would feed him raw flesh when he was hungry, and blood when he got thirsty. And being an injured and starving hiker in the woods, this was his only chance for survival. Kumi tries to catch the woman before she leaves the hospital, but she transforms into a bird and flies away. Moriguchi eventually heals and goes on his merry way until a couple years later when his body is found. And only a few days before his death, the raw flesh that he used to be fed was DNA tested, and the DNA was a match to Moriguchi himself. It's revealed that before his death, Moriguchi was being held captive by the bird for a month, but instead of feeding him, it kept ripping flesh off of his body. It turns out the bird was feeding past Moriguchi his future self to keep him alive, which I guess is the circle of life.
This church is covered in skulls and bones, is San Bernardino Aleosa, but there are many myths and legends as to why there are so many hundreds of bones stacked over here. We have to go back to 1145, where there used to be a ospedale, a hospital, right next door, run by the Catholic Church, and they had a cemetery in order to bury their dead, but they started running out of space. So they had to build an ossuary, a small chamber where they would start to stack the bones. And amidst all the plagues and the disease and devastation, even that ran out of space. So they built a new church in 1210, with an even bigger ossuary. The church had terrible luck because it collapsed in the 1600s, taking down the ossuary and all the bones with it. 1695, they decided to rebuild the church and hired architect Carlo Giuseppe Merlo, and designed this beautiful oculus. But the most important part is the ossuary. And this is the most creepiest, most interesting section of this complex. Let's go inside. We're walking on the same steps as King John V of Portugal in 1785. When he stumbled upon this room, he was in such awe that he actually built a similar structure nearby Lisbon. And now behold the room of skulls and bones neatly stacked with each other and made into interesting decorations, such as the cross right up here. Now there's a few myths and legends as to whose skulls and bones these are. The most common one is that they are the victims of the Black Death that ravaged Europe and decimated the population by nearly a third. Another theory is that these bones are actually belonging to the soldiers of St. Ambrose who fought against the heretics, but also were killed in battle. Lastly, that these are the severed heads of men who were criminals, thieves, murderers, and people who did very heinous crimes. There might be some truth to these myths and legends, but mostly these were people who died at the nearby hospital, and the people who took care of them, the friars, the monks, and the priests. This is nothing new in Europe. Lots of orders in the Catholic faith actually stack skulls and bones in these fashions, like the Capuchin monks in Rome and many, many others. Would you walk into this room, especially at night? Do let me know. I think it must have a special magic seeing this at candlelight. And if we look above, we see frescoes painted by Sebastiano Ricci. And they're so beautiful, they have this 3D effect to them. Our relationship with death is very different from people in the Middle Ages. They would come over here and feel comforted by these bones. But nowadays, we feel afraid, we feel creeped out. Back then, death was a daily reality. You would see disease and war on a daily basis, and it would be very obvious, unlike today. How do you feel about death? Let me know in the comments. Stay curious, my friends.
Yeah, I know my destiny's in front of me. Growing up on 100 seeds, I must survive, it's a human need. To make it to the top, I must believe. Yeah, I'm growing like a flower. I meditate for hours. The rain is like my shower. I used to be that doubter. Used to be that coward. I used to be that tower. In terror, I'm crashing down and knowledge is the power. I'm a different person now. This is the world I found. My energy in certain sounds. Now my gods have made my verses loud, so I'm speaking out and I'm preaching out. Positive vibes are all around. I'm manifesting till I find my crown. To the haters will never put me out.
Stars come crashing down on me. Now I know times have changed. It's liberate.
Cursed TikTok accounts that you should never watch, number 25. Coming in at number 25, we have the account user 5282. This TikTok account has a video of a demon that has over 1 million views. And it said if you watch the video, the demon will appear in your nightmares.
Oh my god.
So this is a thing that I saw and I have to tell you about it. What that deer had is something known as deer warts. The disease began a couple decades ago whenever deer began to drink water that came as runoff off of farmers' fields. What would happen is farmers would put pesticides over their crops, rain comes down, washes it into a gully, the deer drink it and get deer warts. There's a whole backstory about the pesticide companies lobbying with the government to not get into trouble, but we won't get into that right now. Deer with the disease develop these tumors all over their body that is super contagious, which is why whenever deer are found with it, they are put down. However, the deer is perfectly safe to humans and the meat is even able to be eaten, although I would advise against it. Not for any health reason, just because it's gross. However, combine a deer wart outbreak with a chronic wasting disease outbreak, which is a prion that makes deer go crazy, and we essentially get clicker Last of Us zombie deer. So thanks FDA.
ABC News messed up big time, and this mistake is honestly just mind-blowing. And I honestly just feel sorry for anyone who's gonna scroll past this video. So ABC News probably made one of the biggest mistakes of news history, and I honestly believe this wasn't even a mistake. I believe they did this on purpose. Just watch the video.
During an arrest in Brisbane last year.
Like ABC News, there's no coming back from this. They literally cut to a whole satanic ritual on live television. Oh yeah, and that's another thing, this wasn't even live. This whole entire news broadcast was literally pre-recorded. That's the reason I think this wasn't even a mistake to begin with. They had to have done this on purpose. And if you watch the video back, when they cut back to the news broadcaster, she literally acts like nothing happened. So they had to have edited this in since it was pre-recorded. I don't know if this is some secret subliminal message or what. You know what? That's what it has to be. The news does be on that type of time. Hey, but make sure to follow me. Below this video, like, comment, and share with as many people as possible so we can cancel ABC News.